Charleston's journey through time, from colonial roots to modern-day introduction, the city where history breathes. Step onto the cobblestone streets of Charleston, South Carolina, and you'll feel the weight of centuries beneath your feet. Here, pastel-hued mansions stand as silent witnesses to revolution, war, and rebirth. The salty air carries echoes of Gullah spirituals, the clang of blacksmiths, and the laughter of children playing beneath ancient live oaks. Charleston is a city where the past is never far away, a place where every brick, every recipe, every tradition tells a story of resilience, struggle, and transformation. Charleston's journey is not a simple tale. It is a tapestry woven from the threads of colonial ambition, the horrors and legacies of slavery, the fires of revolution and civil war, and the ongoing quest for justice and renewal. Today, Charleston is celebrated for its vibrant culture, world-class cuisine, and architectural beauty. But beneath the surface lies a complex history that continues to shape its identity and future. This is the story of Charleston's journey through time, a story of how a city built on the backbone of slavery and colonial trade has become a living archive of American history, a hub of Southern tradition, and a beacon of cultural renaissance. Chapter 1. Colonial Beginnings. City born of ambition and diversity. The founding of Charlestown. Charleston's story begins in 1670, when English colonists, under the auspices of the Lords Proprietors, established Charlestown at Albemarle Point on the west bank of the Ashley River. The site was chosen for its defensibility, but by 1680, the settlement moved to its current peninsular location between the Ashley and Cooper Rivers, a strategic move that would shape its destiny as a major port and trading hub from its earliest days. Charleston was a city of diversity. English settlers were soon joined by Scots, Irish, French Huguenots fleeing religious persecution, Germans, Sephardic Jews, and immigrants from the Caribbean. This cosmopolitan mix fostered a unique culture and set the stage for Charleston's role as a gateway between the Old World and the New. A walled city on the edge of empire, Charleston was one of the few walled cities in colonial North America. Fortifications were built to defend against Native American attacks, pirates, and European rivals. Remnants of these early defenses, like the Powder Magazine and the Pink House, still stand as reminders of a time when the city was a frontier outpost on the edge of empire. Economic foundations. Rice, indigo, and the rise of the planter elite. Charleston's economic engine was its plantations. The region's subtropical climate and fertile soil were ideal for rice and indigo, crops that would bring immense wealth to the city's elite. The success of rice cultivation, in particular, was made possible by the expertise of enslaved Africans from West Africa, who brought with them knowledge of rice farming and water management. By the early 18th century, Charleston had become one of the wealthiest cities in colonial America, its prosperity built on the backs of enslaved labor. The city's port bustled with ships exporting rice, indigo, timber, and deerskins, while importing manufactured goods and, tragically, more enslaved Africans. Social structure, hierarchy, and diversity. Charleston's society was rigidly hierarchical. At the top were the wealthy planters, who built grand mansions and controlled political power. Below them were merchants, artisans, and tradespeople, who contributed to the city's economic life. At the bottom were enslaved Africans, who soon outnumbered the white population and whose labor was the foundation of Charleston's prosperity. Yet, Charleston was also notable for its religious and ethnic diversity. Laws promoting religious tolerance attracted French Huguenots, Presbyterians, Baptists, Quakers, and Jews, making the city a rare example of pluralism in the colonial South Hook. Imagine a bustling port where English, French, and African languages mingled in the air, where the city's first synagogue stood just blocks from Anglican churches, and where the seeds of both Southern gentility and deep social divisions were sown. Chapter 2. The Crucible of Revolution. Charleston in the fight for independence. Seeds of rebellion. By the mid-18th century, Charleston was the fourth largest city in the American colonies, with a population of about 12,000, half of whom were enslaved. The city's elite, including figures like Henry Lawrence and Christopher Gadsden, became leaders in the growing resistance to British rule. Charleston's residents staged their own tea parties in protests of British taxation, seizing and dumping tea into the harbor. The city's Liberty Tree became a rallying point for revolutionaries, and Charleston sent delegates to the First Continental Congress. War comes to Charleston. Charleston's strategic importance made it a prime target for the British. In June 1776, Colonel William Moultrie and his men famously repelled a British assault on Sullivan's Island, using a fort made of palmetto logs that absorbed enemy cannon fire. This victory became a symbol of South Carolina's resilience and inspired the state flag's palmetto tree. But the war would bring devastation as well. In 1780, after a 6-week siege, Charleston fell to the British, the largest American defeat of the war. The occupation was harsh, with property confiscated, soldiers imprisoned, and civilians suffering under martial law. Resistance and resilience. Despite occupation, resistance continued. Guerrilla fighters like Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, harassed British forces. While women, like Rebecca Brutenmott, played key roles in intelligence and support networks, enslaved people seized opportunities to escape or join the British, who promised freedom in exchange for service. When the British finally evacuated in 1782, Charleston celebrated its liberation. The city's name was officially changed from Charlestown to Charleston, and it resumed its role as a major port in the new republic. Hook. Picture the city's streets echoing with the cheers of freed patriots, the scars of war still fresh, as Charleston emerged from the crucible of revolution forever changed. Chapter 3. The Slave Trade. Charleston as America's Ellis Island. For enslaved Africans, the largest slave port in North America, Charleston's prosperity in the 18th and 19th centuries was inextricably linked to the transatlantic and domestic slave trade. Over 40% of all enslaved Africans brought to North America entered through Charleston Harbor, making it the largest slave port in the United States. Between 150,000 and 200,000 Africans arrived in Charleston, many passing through Gadsden's wharf, a site that could accommodate 6 ships at a time and is now home to the International African American Museum. Nearly 80% of African Americans today can potentially trace an ancestor who arrived in Charleston. The human cost. Personal narratives, the trauma of the Middle Passage, the separation of families at auction, and the brutality of life in bondage are central to Charleston's story. Enslaved people worked on rice, indigo, and cotton plantations, as well as in urban trades and domestic service. Their fingerprints can still be seen in the bricks of Charleston's historic buildings, silent testament to their forced labor. Personal stories, like those shared by modern descendants and historians, connect the past to the present. The Old Slave Mart Museum and the International African American Museum now serve as sites of education and remembrance, telling the stories of those who passed through Charleston and their descendants. The Gullah Geechee legacy. Enslaved Africans brought with them not only agricultural expertise, but also a rich cultural heritage. The Gullah Geechee culture, with its unique language, traditions, and cuisine, remains a cornerstone of Charleston's identity. Hook. Stand on the banks of the Cooper River and imagine the cries of families torn apart, the resilience of those who survived, and the enduring spirit of a people who transformed suffering into culture, community, and resistance. Chapter 4. Civil War and Cataclysm. Charleston as the cradle of secession. The birthplace of secession, Charleston was the epicenter of the secession crisis. In December 1860, South Carolina's secession convention met in Charleston and voted unanimously to leave the Union, making the city the symbolic cradle of the Confederacy. The opening shots at Fort Sumter, Charleston Harbor, became the flashpoint for the Civil War. On April 12, 1861, Confederate batteries opened fire on Fort Sumter, held by Union troops. The bombardment lasted 34 hours. Ending with the fort's surrender and igniting the bloodiest conflict in American history: war, siege, and destruction. Charleston endured a relentless Union blockade, repeated assaults, and the longest siege in American history. 587 days of bombardment that reduced much of the city to rubble. The city was also the site of technological innovation, including the first successful submarine attack by the H.L. Hunley. Civilians suffered greatly, enduring food shortages, destruction, and the constant threat of attack. In February 1865, as Union forces approached, Confederate troops evacuated, setting fire to warehouses and destroying military supplies. When Union troops entered the city, among the first were regiments of U.S. colored troops, a powerful symbol of the war's transformative impact, aftermath, and legacy. Charleston emerged from the war devastated. Its economy, based on slavery and trade, was shattered. Yet, the city's symbolic importance endured, and the long process of recovery and remembrance began. Hook. Imagine the city's skyline shrouded in smoke, the sound of cannons echoing across the harbor, and the hope that flickered as the U.S. flag was raised once more over Fort Sumter. Chapter 5. Reconstruction, Resilience, and the Gullah Renaissance, the struggle for freedom and justice. The end of the Civil War brought emancipation, but also new challenges. Charleston's black community, many of whom were formerly enslaved, played a leading role in the city's political and cultural life during Reconstruction. Black churches, schools, and civic organizations flourished, and black Charlestonians were elected to public office. Yet, the promise of Reconstruction was short-lived. The rise of Jim Crow laws, racial violence, and disenfranchisement reversed many gains, and the city's black population faced renewed oppression. The Gullah Geechee culture, survival and celebration. Despite adversity, the Gullah Geechee culture thrived. Descendants of enslaved Africans preserved their language, traditions, and crafts, creating a unique cultural legacy that continues to enrich Charleston today. Hook. Listen to the rhythms of Gullah spirituals. Taste the flavors of okra soup and Benny seed cookies, and witness the resilience of a community that turns survival into celebration. Chapter 6. Natural disasters and the spirit of recovery. The 1886 earthquake. Charleston's resilience was tested by one of the most powerful earthquakes in U.S. history in 1886. The quake, estimated at magnitude 7.0, destroyed thousands of buildings and claimed many lives. The city rebuilt, incorporating earthquake bolts and other innovations that can still be seen in its architecture. Today, hurricanes and modern challenges. Charleston's coastal location has made it vulnerable to hurricanes, including the devastating Hurricane Hugo in 1989. The city's response tougher building codes, elevated structures, and investment in natural infrastructure has become a model for disaster resilience. Personal stories, like that of the Williams family, who rebuilt their home 16 feet above sea level after Hugo, exemplify the city's spirit of adaptation and recovery. Picture a city battered by wind and water, yet rising stronger each time its people bound together by the shared experience of survival and renewal. Chapter 7. The birthplace of preservation. Charleston's architectural legacy. A living museum. Charleston's architectural heritage is a living record of American history. From colonial-era churches and Georgian mansions to Greek Revival townhouses and Gothic cathedrals, the city's built environment reflects centuries of change and continuity. The single-house design, with its narrow street frontage and side piazzas, is unique to Charleston and a symbol of its adaptation to climate and culture. Pioneering preservation. Charleston is widely recognized as the birthplace of the modern historic preservation movement. In 1920, the Society for the Preservation of Old Dwellings was founded, and in 1931, Charleston passed the nation's first historic district zoning ordinance, protecting entire neighborhoods from demolition. The Historic Charleston Foundation, established in 1947, pioneered the use of revolving funds to restore and protect historic properties, setting a national example, balancing growth and heritage. As tourism and urban growth accelerated in the late 20th century, Charleston faced new challenges. Preservation organizations worked to balance economic development with the protection of the city's unique character, expanding their focus to include diverse communities and the full scope of the city's history. Walk through the French Quarter at dusk, the gas lamps flickering, and imagine the generations who have called these streets home, meets leaving their mark on a city that refuses to forget. Chapter 8. The culinary tapestry. Charleston's multicultural cuisine, a melting pot of flavors. Charleston's cuisine is a living archive of its multicultural history. Native American, African, European, and Caribbean influences have blended to create what is now known as Low-Country cuisine. Enslaved Africans brought rice, okra, beni seeds, and cooking techniques that remain central to Charleston's foodways. Dishes like shrimp and grits, okra soup, and red rice are direct descendants of these traditions. French, British, and Caribbean settlers added their own flavors. From sauces and pastries to spice blends and pickles, the Gullah Geechee table. The Gullah Geechee culture is especially celebrated for its culinary contributions. One-pot meals, stews, and the use of local seafood and vegetables are hallmarks of Gullah cooking, emphasizing resourcefulness and seasonality. Modern innovation. Today, Charleston's culinary scene is a blend of preservation and innovation. Chefs honor traditional recipes while incorporating new influences, making the city a top food destination. Food tours and restaurants not only showcase iconic dishes, but also educate visitors about the multicultural roots of Charleston's cuisine. Savor a bowl of she crab soup or a plate of shrimp and grits, and taste the centuries of history, struggle, and creativity that have shaped Charleston's table. Chapter 9. The 20th Century Transformation, Preservation, and Social Change. Economic shifts and the rise of tourism. Charleston's economy struggled in the early 20th century. But World War II brought new growth with the establishment of a major naval base and shipyards in the post-war years. Tourism and the service industry became the city's economic engines, fueled by its rich history and preserved architecture. The civil rights movement and community revitalization. Charleston, like much of the South, grappled with segregation and the challenges of the civil rights movement. Local activists and national organizations worked to dismantle Jim Crow laws and integrate public spaces and schools. Preservation efforts expanded to include not just buildings but entire neighborhoods, with a focus on inclusive revitalization and affordable housing. A cultural renaissance. The late 20th century saw a cultural renaissance, with renewed interest in the city's diverse heritage. The arts, culinary traditions, and Gullah culture gained greater recognition, contributing to Charleston's reputation as a vibrant, multicultural city. Imagine a city where jazz and gospels spill from church doors, where artists and chefs draw inspiration from centuries of tradition, and where the past is not a burden but a source of pride and creativity. Chapter 10. Reckoning with the Past. Monuments, museums, and memory. Confronting history. Charleston has made significant strides in confronting its complex history. The Charleston Museum, founded in 1773, is America's first museum and remains a cornerstone for historical education. The International African American Museum opened in 2023 at Gadsden's Wharf, directly addresses the city's role in the slave trade and the ongoing legacy of slavery. Historic house museums, like the Aiken Red House and Nathaniel Russell House, now offer tours that interpret the lives of both the elite and the enslaved, providing a more nuanced understanding of the city's past. Monuments and memorials. Charleston's public spaces are dotted with monuments and memorials that reflect its complex history. Recent years have seen efforts to contextualize or remove monuments that glorify the Confederacy, while new memorials, like the African Ancestors Memorial Garden, honor those who suffered under slavery. Education and public engagement. Charleston's Museum Mile connects major museums and historic sites, making history accessible to residents and visitors alike. Educational programs, walking tours, and public conversations foster dialogue about the city's past and its ongoing impact. Hook, stand in the shadow of a monument. Read the names etched in stone, and join a city in the process of remembering, reckoning, and healing. Chapter 11. Personal Stories. Charlestonians across the centuries, oral histories and community memory. Personal stories bring Charleston's history to life. The Historic Charleston Foundation's Oral History Project and Dr. Nic Butler's Charleston Time Machine podcasts collect memories from residents across generations, capturing the evolution of neighborhoods, the impact of disasters, and the rhythms of daily life. Voices from the Margins. Oral histories from Black Charlestonians and Gullah Geechee community members reveal purposeful exclusions from mainstream narratives and efforts to reclaim and share their stories. Resilience through disaster. Stories of survival after hurricanes and earthquakes, like the Williams family's experience after Hugo. Highlight the city's spirit of adaptation and recovery. Everyday life and tradition. Recollections of family recipes, church gatherings, and local festivals provide insight into Charleston's multicultural heritage and evolving identity. Hook, listen to the voices of Charlestonians, market vendors, Gullah elders, preservationists, and newcomers, each adding a thread to the city's rich tapestry. Chapter 12. Charleston, today a vibrant hub of culture, history, and Southern tradition, a city of living history. Today, Charleston is celebrated for its well-preserved architecture, world-class cuisine, and vibrant art scene. The city's historic districts, museums, and festivals draw millions of visitors each year, making tourism a major economic driver. Innovation and inclusion. Charleston's culinary scene continues to evolve, with chefs reimagining traditional dishes and embracing global influences. Preservation organizations work to protect not just buildings but the city's diverse communities and cultural heritage. Ongoing challenges. Charleston faces ongoing challenges, including climate change, sea level rise, and the need for social equity. The city's commitment to preservation, education, and public engagement suggests a willingness to confront these challenges head-on. Hook, walk the Battery at sunrise. The city bathed in golden light, and feel the pulse of a place where history is not just remembered, but lived, where every day is a new chapter in Charleston's journey through time. Conclusion. The enduring spirit of Charleston. Charleston's journey through time is a story of resilience, transformation, and hope. From its colonial roots and the horrors of slavery to its rebirth as a vibrant modern city, Charleston has faced adversity with courage and creativity. Its past struggles have shaped its present and will continue to influence its future. Today, Charleston stands as a testament to the power of memory, the importance of reckoning with history, and the enduring spirit of a community that refuses to be defined by its scars. It is a city where the past is always present, a place where every street, every meal, every story is an invitation to explore, to learn, and to celebrate the rich tapestry of American life. Final hook. Charleston is not just a city, it is a living story. Come walk its streets, taste its flavors, listen to its voices, and become part of its journey through time. This article is a comprehensive exploration of Charleston's historical and cultural significance, tracing its evolution from colonial roots to its status as a vibrant modern hub. It draws on personal narratives, architectural heritage, culinary traditions, and the city's ongoing efforts to confront and celebrate its complex past, offering readers a deep and engaging portrait of one of America's most storied cities.